from the outlandish rogue that somehow ended up working for the king, from the most powerful and a key person in William the Conqueror's life, Matilda, we are now taking a look at a different unique history, something a little, just definitely not down that same path where we look at historical figures. We're now looking at a more of a larger branch of history here. So in today's unique history episode, we're going to look at something that when I read the article title, I was like, how and what? And I can't wait to share it with you. This article is titled Celtic Myths, the Tales That Might Have Inspired Star Wars and Harry Potter. Two of the biggest pieces of fiction out there for pop culture completely. And it may have been derived or partially maybe influenced from some Celtic mythology. I think this is really interesting, and I'm looking forward to actually diving into this article and seeing how those connected. How could this lead to the creation of such important items and piece of media and things to consume in pop culture like Star Wars and Harry Potter. So, let us begin. Tales of monsters, gods, spells, and love affairs. Celtic myths reflected the social thinking and traditions of pre-Roman Celts of Britain, Ireland, and Europe. Spread by traveling poets and storytellers who plied their trade from village to village, the myths came into being partly to explain natural phenomena and to try to address basic human concerns about life and death. Sounds about right. You got your bards there, looks like storytellers traveling along the lands and sharing their stories, the things they've seen, and trying to explain what's unique and different and out there. And it gets spread and spread and spread, and now we've got these interesting, unique stories that we get to learn about. Let's see here. So I'm going to give like a little context here, it looks like. So the author is Miranda Eldhouse Green, an expert in archaeology and shamanism, who reveals how traditional Celtic characters and symbols can even be found in contemporary popular culture series, such as Star Wars and Harry Potter. Awesome. So she's going to now recall 5 of the most fascinating Celtic myths that kind of relate to some things we know and love today, like Star Wars and Harry Potter. Let's begin. In the Middle Ages, Christian monasteries in Ireland and Wales were the engines of literacy and education. Many monks took it upon themselves to record pagan myths and legends dating to pre-Christian times, leaving us a rich legacy of gods, goddesses, supernatural heroes, enchanted animals, and magical objects. But their Christian chroniclers seasoned these stories with a heavy sprinkling of early Christian ethics, so mythic warfare tended to end in disaster. A moral and overpowerful woman inevitably came to grief, and good usually triumphed over evil in the end. Very cliche topics there that you're looking at here. Mythic warfare ended in disaster. Basically, these lovely, powerful women would suddenly be fallen to grief or, sadness, mental health, these things. And then, of course, good over bad. Good always wins, the bad always loses. So these are where some of these stories have come from. Back before pre-Christianity, which is forever ago. Do they actually give us a timeline for that? Yes, a little bit here. 8th and 12th centuries AD, so that's really cool. Let's actually dive into, I'm going to say this right now. I'm looking through a little bit of the article, and there are Irish names, and I'm going to pronounce them very incorrectly. I'm not good with Gaelic or Irish at all, so I apologize in advance. I'll give it a shot. It'll probably be wrong. There's that context for you. It is generally accepted, though, that these myths were first written down between the 8th and 12th centuries AD. The 2 most important groups of Celtic myths are found in the Welsh Mabinogion Mabinogion? Mabinogion. Aha! Okay, words. Welsh, Mabinogion, and the Irish Táin Bó Cúailnge, more popularly known as the Cattle Raid of Cooley. Pagan Celtic myths were originally transmitted orally by storytellers who acted both as traveling entertainers, bards in D&D speak, and as peddlers of news. But the origins of the myths were probably very ancient indeed. As many oral traditions are, we can't necessarily trace back to when these things happened, because it's just usually passed down by generation by generation by generation by generation. We can kind of trace back to like maybe when your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather may have heard the story, but before then it's really hard to actually trace it down, especially because we know the phenomenon of the telephone game where you whisper a phrase into someone's ear, then they give it to someone else, and when you get to the end, the person has to reveal what was said, and it's usually skewed. It's usually quite wrong, or it could be completely different than what the original message is. So it's really hard to trace down these stories and exactly when they even happened and exactly what actually happened, because of then that kind of telephone game idea. So that's context there for you. Like most mythic traditions, they came into being partly to explain natural phenomena, including disasters such as floods, famines, and plagues, and to try to address basic human concerns such as who are we, why are we here, who came before us, what happens to us when we die. Oh, that's kind of hitting me a little bit because I'm having an existential crisis in my life right now. I'm like, who am I? Am I meant to just not do these things in my life? These goals that I have, am I just meant to work and read? Oh man, I get it. Maybe in a more modernized way, but yeah, who are we? Like, who am I? Why am I here? Who came before me? What happens to me when I die? Very existential crisis questions to pose to us. Okay, didn't expect to get hit with that, but let's keep going. The Celtic myths tap into another hugely rich vein of tradition, the pantheon of gods and goddesses worshipped by the pre-Roman Celts of Britain, Ireland, and Europe between about 500 BC and the Roman period. So that's kind of cool. So then they have their own pantheon of gods, basically. So it'll be a little different from our Romanian gods. That's wrong. Roman gods. And the Greek mythology, like, it'll be quite different. It's their own Celtic myth, their own Celtic beliefs, basically. Thus, for instance, we find the Celtic horse goddess Epona. Oh my god. Epona? Wait, Epona is a horse goddess from Celtic traditions? Is that a direct correlation with Epona from the Legend of Zelda games? Whoa, mind blowing. I have to throw in my little gamer nerdiness into this episode today, because Epona is the name of the horse in like Ocarina of Time and like some of the other like Legend of Zelda games. So wait a minute, it comes from this? So we have a horse goddess Epona. That's so wild to me. Anyway, let's keep going. My gamer nerdiness set aside for now. Thus, for instance, we find the Celtic horse goddess Epona, who is venerated over huge areas of Roman Europe, transformed into the iconic figure of Rhiannon, the horse heroine of Welsh mythology. Celtic myths are full of monsters, heroes, gods, shape-changers, spells, wars, and love affairs. Apart from their interest as ancient pagan myths, they are richly entertaining stories. Here are 5 of the most fascinating. I can't frickin' wait. If I already have one correlation, one connection between Epona and Link and, the Legend of Zelda series, I can't wait to read more about these and see like how they can correlate to some of the other things we mentioned, like Star Wars and Harry Potter. Alright, so Cuchulainn, I'm so saying that wrong, I apologize, my Irish friends, but Cuchulainn, the Hound of Culann, It's the English translation, I believe, of that one. But the Hound of Cuchulainn. So Cuchulainn, I'm going to go Cuchulainn instead of Cuchulainn. Cuchulainn was an Irish hero, son of a mortal and a god. He was a mighty warrior, champion of the Ulstermen in the war with the people of Connaught, who were led by their formidable queen, Maeve. My bad. Irish names always get to me a little bit there. My bad. So we have this Cuchulainn, Irish hero, son of a mortal and a god. So basically like a demigod. Thinking if you look back to like Maui and even Percy Jackson novels, like a demigod basically. And he was champion of this war for Ulster, and he was led by this formidable queen, Maeve. While he was still an infant, the druid Cathbad prophesied that he would lead a short but glorious life. When he was 5 years old, Cuchulainn routed the Ulster king Conchobar's 50-strong youth brigade. While still a young boy, he demanded arms from the king and shattered 15 sets of weapons before accepting those belonging to Conchobar himself. The young hero got his name the Hound of Cuchulainn when he accidentally killed the guard dog of Cuchulainn the blacksmith. Oh my gosh, that's funny. So he killed this hound dog by mistake in his kind of quest to finally get like formal weapons and like be a warrior kind of thing. That's great. That's not great. Don't kill animals, but what a reputation to have as a young boy. Ashamed of his deed, he pledged to redeem himself by acting in the dog's place. So he became a guard dog for this blacksmith. I mean, it would be kind of smart. It would be like not quite an internship, but kind of an internship, because he was interested in weapons, fighting, being a warrior. So being a guard dog or a security officer even for the blacksmith would let him get some insights into how these weapons were made. I think it's clever, but they said that he was ashamed. So there's that kind of like, I'm so sorry, until you can get a dog, or until I can pay for a dog to replace me, I'll be your guard dog. These stories are just they're brilliant. I like them a lot. So he grew up very fast and quickly became Ulster's war leader. Like many ancient mythical heroes, he regularly communed with spirits, and he had a particular affinity with the Morrigan, a war goddess who frequently appeared to him in the guise of a crow. A particular feature of Cuchulainn was his habit of going into warp spasm, or a berserk state when roused. When like this, he was literally out of his mind, and his body did strange and monstrous things. One eye bulged out, while the other sank into his cheek, and his body rotated in his skin, while the hero light shone fiercely around his head. Oh, that's disturbing a little bit. Warp spasm, that makes sense now, that if his body's being like twisted and like transforming and all in this kind of state, this berserk, maybe like a bloodthirsty barbarian rage, maybe a little bit, his body reacts to it. And I can just like picture it in my head, and it would be so creepy to see that. But yet, despite this kind of creepy distortion of his body, there's still this hero light, this idea that he exudes, this idea of a hero, the embodiment of what a hero is and looks like. So that's kind of very interesting there. Betrayed by his enemies, he met his death on the battlefield, but when mortally wounded, he had himself bound to a stake so that he would die standing upright, facing his foes. In the end, the Morrigan betrayed him, perching on his shoulder to show his enemies that he was dead. Oh, geez, this goddess that's basically he communed with and believed in ended up betraying him and basically showed off the fact that he was dead. Like, haha, your enemies won and beat you, and it kind of that sinking feeling that, oh, maybe my goddess wasn't actually interested in me. Maybe the goddess was just using me. That kind of like, maybe that shame. But of course he's dead, so he wouldn't feel these things, but I can feel them for him. I'm a human. I have empathy. I get it. Oh wow, craze. That's, wild to me. Interesting story. Killed a dog, became a guard dog, went into quickly leading Ulster's army ranks and that kind of thing, and had this weird distortion whenever he was in this berserk state. And then he got betrayed, got killed in the battlefield, but he refused to die laying down. He actually put himself back up on a stake so that he could face his enemies right to the last moment. That's kind of a statement. That's definitely a statement to make. So this one, Blodewed. We're going to go with that pronunciation today. Blodewed, the false flower woman of Welsh myth. Blodewed appears in the fourth branch of the Welsh Mabinogion. I'm saying his name so wrong. So this is like the collection of stories basically from a bunch of monks. So this Welsh Mabinogion. So she appears here in the fourth branch, like fourth chapter probably, or fourth book in this collection. She was not mortal, but was conjured from wild flowers, the oak, meadowsweet, and broom, by two magicians, Math and Gwydion, for their kinsman Lula gifts, the bright one of the skillful hand. Cool. So this is giving me some Feywild inspiration for D&D campaign I'm teaching right now. It's born and conjured from wildflowers. So she's kind of like a dryad a little bit, if you think about it. Like dryads are kind of these tree plant spirits. So she's like that. And it was for a guy named Lula Gifts, who knows? Oh no, it's that debate again. Gifts or gifs? Well, who knows? And basically that translates the bright one of the skillful hand. So she was just born and created from magicians, sorcerers, magic users, and was given to this person. Because he was illegitimate, Lou's mother, Arianrod, caused him at birth, this is, when you get like a really difficult Irish name, you have to really think about how they would say it. So let's try that sentence one more time. Because he was illegitimate, Lou's mother, Arianrod, cursed him at birth, denying him a name, weapons, or a wife unless she herself gave them to him. So your mom is picking your wife. That's the very brief story of that curse, is that she has to pick the wife to her son. The boy's uncle, Gwydion, although it is elsewhere suggested that Gwydion is actually also Lula Gift's father. That's some controversy family interbreeding there. Anyway, tricked his sister into endowing the child with both a name and weapons, but getting him a wife provided trickier. So he and Math got round the problem by creating Blodewed. Okay, so his uncle did not agree with this curse, this idea that she has to pick this wife out. So then he gets desperate, goes to Math, this other friend of his, and creates Blodewed, like a wife, basically creates a wife for him. Wild. But because she was not a mortal woman and was thus without morals, the Christian influence is perhaps showing here a little bit, Lou's flower wife betrayed him with another man, Gron, and the lovers plotted his death. So she actually went to another man instead of staying with Lou. And these lovers plotted to kill Lou himself. That's quite harsh. That's a little insane, but let's keep going with this. Lou himself was clearly a hero or even a god, for he could only be killed in a peculiar, impossible way. He had to be neither inside nor outside a house, naked or clothed or on water or on land, and only a spear made during the hours that smithing was not permitted could kill him. That is like the world's intensest riddle right there. Neither inside nor outside a house, naked or clothed, on water or land, and only a spear made during the hours that smithing was not permitted could kill him. Craziness. By huge cunning, together with a certain dimness on Lu's part, Blodeuwedd persuaded her husband to act out the only circumstances in which he was vulnerable, by making a bath for Lu on a riverbank and erecting an arched roof above it, then thatching it so that it let in no water. She brought a billy goat and stood next to the bath, and then Lu placed one foot on the back of the goat and the other on the edge of the bath. Aha! 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on land. Whoever struck Lu while he was in that position would be able to kill him. Then Gron smote him with his spear. As he was struck, Lu uttered a ghastly shriek, turned into an eagle, and flew into an oak tree. There Gwydion found him and restored him. But Blodeuwedd he cursed, turning her into an owl, and condemning her to hunt alone at night, shunned by all other birds for eternity. Oh, that's some revenge plot there. He turned into an eagle, got returned back to his regular form by, his uncle, and then just to reverse that kind of revenge, made her an owl that's left to be alone, could never mate with another bird, could not have connections with another bird, was forced to be alone for the rest of her life. Wild. I love it. Our next myth here is capricious cauldrons, which I have a very deep respect for that alliteration right there. Capricious cauldrons. There is a Welsh mythic story called The Spoils of Annwn, which narrates a raid on Annwn, the Otherworld, by Arthur, whose target was a magical cauldron, described as made of shimmering bronze and studded with gems. This cauldron knew its own mind. It needed the breath of 9 virgins to heat the broth within it, and it would never provide food for a coward. These stories are so wild. 9 virgins to heat the broth with their breath. So are you literally standing by this cauldron as someone who's never, come to age, so to speak, and you have to just stand there and go, and then it would heat up? Wild to me. And it would never provide food for a coward. So if you were not brave or courageous or any of these kind of heroic qualities, you would not get fed by this cauldron. Weird. I like it, but definitely a little weird. Arthur's cauldron wrestling expedition ended in a Pyrrhic victory. He gained the vessel, but lost most of his men to the forces of darkness in doing so. Arthur's cauldron is only one of many that had magical properties. For the Celts, cauldrons were vessels of rebirth. The myth of Bran the Blessed, Lord of Harlech, a Welsh hero, so large that he could wade across the Irish Sea, and whose severed head remained alive and talking after his death. Wild. Okay, Bran the Blessed, Lord of Harlech, a Welsh hero, huge enough that he can walk through the Irish Sea, was decapitated, and the head actually remained alive and could talk after. What? Wild. I love it. So this contains an account of Bran's most treasured possession, a cauldron that can bring the dead to life. Alright, but again, this was a vessel that had its own agenda. When Matholwch, King of Ireland, was insulted by one of Bran's relatives when he came to woo his sister Branwen, he could be appeased only by the gift of the cauldron. Later on, when war broke out between Ireland and Wales, Matholwch used Bran's gift as a weapon. Every night, the Irish war dead were cooked in the cauldron and emerged good as new to fight another day. Raising the army of the dead, literally, through this cauldron. He would cook the bodies? Let's pause there for a moment. You're cooking dead bodies and then they magically walk out of this cauldron alive? That is so... It could be very grotesque and if that was an animated thing, that'd be really creepy to see, unless it's sort of the Disney cartoon version of it. Who knows? But wild. But these resurrected soldiers were, in fact, undead zombies, for they had lost the power of speech. Ireland had its own cauldron myths. Gods, such as the Dagada, a father god, and otherworld hostels, in which they served food in ever-replenishing cauldrons, and where pigs that had been cooked and eaten rather chillingly returned charred and squealing to be recooked every day. Huh. Crazy. So these gods and these connections with these cauldrons would do these really weird and interesting and really these phenomenal things that these things that were ate and killed and cooked could actually be recooked and re-brought back to life. So you'd have like an endless supply of food. Huh, that's a benefit. A little wild, a little far-fetched, but it would be a benefit. That also reminds me of the movie The Black Cauldron. So there you go, another pop culture reference there from some really wild mythologies here. I like it though. Shape-shifting lovers. Ongus and Caer? I apologize, Irish Welsh people. I apologize. Ongus Macoch was an Irish god of youth. He was the son of two deities, the Dagada and Boann, goddess of the river Boyne. But Boann was married already when she became pregnant with Ongus, and so they enchanted the sun so that it neither rose nor set for 9 months until the baby was born. Just controlling the sun and moon, guys. No big deal. They're never going to be seen. It's fine. Goodbye. Thus, Ongus was conceived and born on the same day, and the illicit lovers managed to conceal their union from Boann's husband, Nectin. Given the circumstances surrounding his birth, it is not surprising that Ongus became the patron god of star-crossed lovers. Aw, I kind of like that. Indeed, he had his own love story. One night he had a dream in which he saw a wonderfully beautiful girl and fell in love with her. Don't we all have that dream, guys? I think we all have that dream. But however, when he awoke, his passion was undimmed, and he set out to discover who she was and how to find her. Eventually, Ongus tracked her down to a lake where the girl lived with a bevy of other young women. Her name was Caer Ibormith, which actually translates to Yewberry. But Caer and her companions were under an enchantment. Every alternate year, at the festival of Samhain on November 1st, the Celtic New Year, the girls were transformed into swans. Ongus asked Caer's father for her hand in marriage, but he refused. Is this like the Swan Princess, like the story, like Odessa, and like the... Is it like that? It's a reference to the Swan Princess. Oh my god, that's crazy. I love that movie, by the way. I don't know if you can tell, but this is exactly that story, the Swan Princess. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. You'll see it. It hasn't aged well. The themes in that movie are not the greatest for current audiences, but it's still, I love that movie. So the father refused to allow his daughter to marry Ongus. Realizing that the only way to win her was to wait until she was in swan form, he went to the lake at Samhain and called her. When she came, he turned himself into a swan, and both birds flew away, circling the lake 3 times and singing a spell as they flew, so that everyone below fell asleep and they could not be pursued. The lovers took up residence in Ongus's palace at Bruch no Boyne, and it is to be hoped lived happily ever after. That is really clever. It's kind of a Zeus meets the Swan Princess situation here a little bit, because I'm not going to go into Zeus. You guys know Zeus, right? Did all the tricks that he could to be with me. Yeah, okay. And now we get to look at Rhiannon the Horse Maiden, or I would like to call her Epona, because of that little context before. The first branch of the Mabinogion tells the story of Pwyll, Lord of Dyfed in southwest Wales. Near his court at Lisarberth, modern Narberth. Okay, so it's Narberth. There was a gorset, a magical mound. Anyone who sat on the mound was assured either of a catastrophic shock or a wondrous event. Fortune or non-fortune, fortune or disadvantage, that kind of idea. One day, Will was sitting on the gorset when he saw a beautiful woman riding, clad in shimmering white upon a dazzling white horse. He commanded his swiftest horseman to ride after her and stop her, but, however fast they galloped, she outpaced them, even though her own mount appeared to be ambling. So, Puel leapt on his own steed and pursued her, to no avail. In desperation, he called out to her, and immediately she reined in her horse and sat waiting for him. When he caught up with her, she told him she had only been waiting for him to address her before she stopped. Fair enough. I think that's very respectful. I get it. That's a good rule there. The horsewoman's name was Rhiannon, which translates to Great Queen. The pair fell in love and married, but at first their union appeared cursed, for no child was born to them. After 3 years, Rhiannon produced a son, but even then the couple's troubles were not over. On the night of May Eve, just before the spring festival of Beltane, the baby was stolen. What? Who would steal a baby? I'm sorry, that's awful. Don't steal babies, okay? Don't. It's just awful. Rhiannon's watchwoman had fallen asleep at their post. Good guard. Nice. When they woke, fearing blame, they framed the slumbering Rhiannon, killed the puppy, and smearing her hands and face with its blood, so that the mother appeared to have killed and eaten her own son. What? Wait a minute. So, her watchwoman, her guards, were afraid that they would be blamed for the murder, or like even the kidnapping, and made it look like the woman they served ate and killed her son? That's quite a crazy way to cover up your story. What even? Puel neither banished nor... Wait. I see. Sorry. I got caught in the names again. My apologies. Puel neither banished nor executed Rhiannon, but imposed a strange punishment. She had to crouch by the gate of the palace and carry every visitor up to the door on her back like a beast of burden. Oh, that's punishment. I mean, depending on what she looked like and what she was, to carry like a whole person would be awful. Like for me, for example, I'm 5'1". Most people are taller than I am, so to be subjugated to that punishment would be absolutely awful for me. I would hate that. But there was a happy ending. The baby was found and returned to his parents. Rhiannon named him Pryderi, which means care. Rhiannon's recurrent association with horses probably betrays her origins as a pagan horse goddess. Interesting. I like that name, Pryderi, like Pryderi. So Pryderi, Pryderi. I like that. That's a really nice name. But wow. So Rhiannon's recurrent association with horses probably betrays her origins as a pagan horse goddess. Fair enough. If you're that obsessed with a horse or obsessed with something in your life, it's probably a good indication that, I am a god. I am a goddess. But wow, these stories are insanely good. I mean, those of you that know Harry Potter more than I do and Star Wars more than I do, you could probably maybe find the connections here a little bit. But I found other connections, like Epona for Legend of Zelda and Link and, Ocarina of Time. And then I came up with that other connection with the Swan, like the Swan Princess there. And that was, related to the Swan Princess, the movie. And then, of course, the Black Cauldron and that kind of movie as well. So there's a lot of really interesting influences that may or may not have directly came from these really old myths that were pre-Roman, pre-Christianity, and their own kind of interesting twists and turns. I think I really enjoyed this, actually. This article is really cool. And I think I'm going to save this article to go back and read on a gloomy day, because I think that will cheer me up. I definitely feel really happy and glad to have gone through this with you guys today. But that is some Celtic mythology and some tales that have spurred on some influences in our pop culture and our media consumption and the things we are love and addicted to and have great memories for. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. I definitely felt like this is a keeper for me because, fun fact, I normally don't keep these articles. I save them like on the actual website, but I usually bookmark them for recording and then I delete them because I have a lot of bookmarks. But I think this one's actually worth saving. I think it'd be nice to go back and read these, you know, on a rainy day or when I'm feeling kind of blah. So, yes, thank you guys for listening. I'm going to close the chapter on this story, and I look forward to sharing more of these with you in the very near future. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.